Good afternoon. Welcome to the Teachers Retirement System Board Meeting for March 16th, 2023. I'm going to start by calling the roll. Brian Berge,
representing Eric Adams, present.
Thomas Brown,
Present.
Dr. Angela Green,
Present.
Allison Hirsch,
John Doza.
Present virtually, and my alternate John Dorsey is in the room.
okay, thank you. David Kazansky,
Present.
Victoria Lake,
Present.
we have a quorum. So the first item on the agenda is an update on TRS operations, and Ivor Grant Williams is going to give us that update.
Hello, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So the first part of this update is regarding our required minimum distribution. TRS has identified approximately 30,000 members who will be due a required minimum distribution from their TDA accounts for 2023. In late April, TRS will send a notification letter with filing instructions to these members. The next update is in regards to online educational programs. TRS's online educational programs continue to be extremely popular with members. Since January, over 3,900 members have registered and tuned in to our live sessions to learn more about their benefits.
Thank you.
That's the
Ivor.
update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ivor, would you be able to send that to us electronically?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is an update from the actuary. Mr. Actuary.
Thank you. And I'm just going to cover 3 pages in the letter that's provided in your board packets. If you want to follow along, I'm going to start with page B1. So this is the our preliminary contribution calculation for the fiscal year 2024. It's also up on the screen there as well. And just as a reminder, this calculation is based on a snapshot of data that's happened in the past. So this calculation is based on a snapshot of data as of last June 30th. And then we do the calculations, we figure out the contribution rate, and we give it interest to the next upcoming fiscal year, which is the fiscal year starting this July 1st, which is the 2024 fiscal year. The total employer contribution has several components. The first row there is the normal cost. That's the cost for providing 1 year of extra service to your active members. And that cost is $1.4 billion. The next section is the amortization of unfunded liabilities. As of the beginning of this upcoming fiscal year, we're expecting $9.3 billion in unfunded liabilities. And all these rows are the payments that are going to be applied to that unfunded in different slices. And I'll get a little bit into that in a second, but the total is $1.7 billion for payment on the unfunded. Then we have administrative expenses of $61.9 million. Those are expenses that were deducted from the plan assets for the administration of the plan. And so now we have to charge the employer, the obligors, with interest to reimburse those. So that's the reimbursement of administrative expenses deducted of the plan. There's a DOE charge for the annuity savings accumulation fund, $26.3 million that they pay towards liabilities associated with that, with those provisions. A new line item here is the DOE Galeno charges. This is the charge that the DOE is paying as part of that settlement, the additional employee contributions plus interest for those members impacted by that settlement. Another line on here is the KIP Academy Charter Schools, and it's a small number, it's 52,000. I want to talk about it for a second because this, what's happening with KIP could potentially impact the other obligors and the plans in the future. So the reason KIP has their own line item in there is they're actually overfunded. So they have a surplus, their assets are bigger than their liabilities. And so when you have a surplus, you can use that to offset the normal cost. Their surplus is so big, it offsets their normal costs, their administrative expenses, and leaves an extra 13,000 left over. So we can't give them a refund of 13,000. And by statute, they need to pay the administrative expenses. So we have to basically re-amortize their surplus by moving 52,356 into the future. So that's what this row is. It's basically, it says it's a deferred overfunding credit. It's a charge in this valuation, but then that accumulates with interest in the future, so they can use that money to defer future normal costs. So that's the only one, and the only obligor in this valuation. They had that situation. It could happen again in the future with others. If you add up all those numbers, it's a employer contribution rate of $3.2 billion. Now, wanted to talk for a second on page A8 about your amortization payments. So page A8 gives you the payment plan and how you pay off your $9.3 billion in unfunded liabilities. And that first row in there, back in 2010, the initial unfunded row was the only row in the table. And that was the entire unfunded liabilities in the plan. And Liz, if you could go to page A8. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that first row was the entire unfunded liability in 2010. And there was a payment plan of paying that off in 22 years. So 2010 plus 22, 2032. So the idea was, hey, we're going to pay off the unfunded liabilities by 2032, and anything new, any change in unfunded liabilities that happens after that, we're going to give it a different row in here. And so this is what happened. Each row in here is a difference in unfunded liabilities and expected with a payment plan in statute for how we're going to pay those off. The bottom row is the new row we added this year, where there was a $61 million loss, which out of your $80 billion in liabilities is a really, really tiny loss. So it's almost nothing. But anyway, so this page always shows up in all of our letters. It gives you the payment plan for the unfunded. What's not obvious for this is how this plays out in the future. So on the next page, Liz, if you could go to page A9, I did the math for you. I totaled up all the outstanding payments and put them in the fiscal year because so you can see what's actually going to happen. And the top number is the total of all the amortization payments, and the graph on the bottom is just a graph of those numbers. And Liz, if you could scroll down a little bit so you can see the graph. You see a little farther, right there.
There it is.
Yeah, so you can see the original plan was to pay everything off in 2032, and then the unfunded is paid off. But what you see is really happening is there's a surplus that exists after 2032, which will then get applied to the normal cost. If you do the math, if you take the 9.3 billion in unfunded liability, give it 7% interest and apply these payments, you find out that the unfunded liability is going to get paid off not in 2032, but in 2030. So you're 2 years ahead of schedule in paying off your unfunded liability. And so that payment, in that $1.496 billion payment in 2030, right now is expected to pay off the unfunded and create a small surplus. And then those two payments of, adding up to about 3 billion in 2031, 2032, they're just going to keep adding to the surplus since the unfunded's already paid off. And so then what happens? They come back to you as credits against the normal cost. So I can't change this payment schedule because that's how it is in statute. But if the law changed some reasonable things to do, some things other systems do, is if you go into overfunded situation, automatically fresh start. It's called a fresh start, where you just collapse all these amortization bases and start from scratch. So that's something to consider. If there are no future gains and losses, or the future ones after this valuation kind of cancel, right around 2030, you might think about fresh starting and just wiping out all those credits that are deferred in the future and those two extra payments. You could also fresh start earlier if you wanted to change the statute and move those credits forward and reduce some of those payments that you're going to be making now. But this is all stuff I just wanted to bring it up to you so you know you're building up some credits now. You're having payments for 9 years, and you're going to have like credits for 7 years after that, based on how these amortizations are set up in statute. So anyway, that's a new chart. don't like, I put it now so there's no surprises, 7 years from now and you're looking at your surplus. That's the end of my prepared comments. Happy to answer any questions if you have any. Right.
Mark, how many years is the Galeno charge amortized over?
That is just a one-time. So what the
It's a one-time?
Galeno charge is the members were only required to put in 86% of their accumulated contributions. So that charge is a one-time charge to put in the extra 14% plus late interest.
So that charge doesn't represent the entire liability cost for the remedy. It just represents that incremental portion of contributions that were paid
That's
by
right.
the member. Okay. And does your office have an approach for how the entire liability will be dealt with?
Yeah, I think it's it's going to flow into gain and loss. Its members are going to trickle in. It's not a big enough thing where you want to set up a base. So we just decided to let it just trickle through and kind of look at it as a data gain loss. So then it'll get amortized over 15 years.
Okay, rather than as like a benefit change.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So those numbers don't assume any cataclysmic event that would cause the systems to make large payouts or an early retirement or a buyout or something that theoretically could happen, right? So
Right.
that would alter those charts probably dramatically. Depending
So,
on.
depending on what would happen. So if there's a benefit improvement, be amortized over the future active lifetime. So it would, it would increase the costs during, say, the average future lifetime's 15 years, increase the cost over 15 years. If there was an investment gain or investment loss, that would get amortized over 15 years and impact that. Right, so it assumes everything goes forward exactly as we assume.
I just wanted to get in the minutes. So I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
So next on the agenda is the executive director's report. And the first item on that is the matter of the next meeting, and it has been suggested that the next regular meeting of the Teachers Retirement Board be held on the fourth Thursday of the month, April 20th, 2023. So please mark the calendars. The next item is a resolution for the authorization to the Comptroller of the City of New York to invest certain QPP funds.
Please waive the reading of the resolution.
He waived the reading, so.
So do I hear a motion to accept the resolution for the authorization to the Comptroller of the City of New York to invest certain QPP funds?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Hear a second. Any discussion? We're ready to vote.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. We're ready to vote. All those in
Aye.
favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? This resolution has passed.
The next resolution is the authorization of the Comptroller of the City of New York to invest certain tax-deferred annuity funds.
Again, please waive the reading.
And do I hear a motion to accept the authorization of the Comptroller of the City of New York to invest certain tax-deferred annuity funds?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any questions? Any comments? Great, I guess we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor of the authorization to the Comptroller of the City of New York to invest certain tax-deferred annuity funds, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and this resolution has passed. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you, John.
The next resolution is the actuary's determination for the preliminary fiscal year 2024 employer contribution to the Teachers Retirement System of New York City.
Please skip to the resolved.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a preliminary fiscal year 2024 employer contribution to the Teachers Retirement System of New York City, $3,174,413,180.
Do I hear a motion to accept this resolution, and let me repeat the resolution. It's the actuary's determination for the preliminary fiscal year 2024 employer contribution to the teachers' retirement system of New York City. Do I hear a motion to accept that?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And this resolution has passed as well.
And the next resolution is TRS's net zero implementation plan.
Patricia, thank you. I would like to request that this item be laid over. My colleagues and I have some additional questions that we would like to discuss and understand before we vote on the plan. Do I hear a motion? Do I have consent to lay this over? Is that the way we do it?
Yes, so
Agreement.
Do
people
I
will
have,
say yes.
do I have, do I have,
Yes.
do I have a
Yes.
consent to lay this over?
Yes, and we understand we'll be laying it over today. We'll make the controls office available if there are any questions that they could answer on behalf of the trustees.
Just have some
Thank you.
additional- Thank you, John. So
Okay.
that the item is laid over. then. Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the calendar and the approval of the following minutes. So February 2nd, 2023 investment meeting minutes, February 9th, 2023 board meeting minutes.
Do we hear a motion to accept the investment meeting minutes and the board meeting minutes?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do I hear any conversation, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. So any abstentions? This has also been approved.
Okay, and next is the calendar items, and you will all have received an electronic version of the calendar, and I had an opportunity to look at it. So,
Please waive the reading of the calendar.
thank you.
And do I hear a motion to accept the calendar items?
So moved.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any discussions? Calendar items have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, under other business, we have the 2023 strategic plan update, and Ivo Grant Williams is gonna give us that presentation.
Okay, hello again. So introducing myself again, I am Ivor Grant Williams. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations and the Employer Management Group. And it is my pleasure today to introduce and update you on the TRS Strategic Plan, which is a living document that guides decision-making across the agency. Strategic planning at TRS is used as an organizational management activity to set priorities, focus energy and resources, strengthen operations, ensure that employees and stakeholders are working towards common goals, establish agreement around intended outcomes, and adjust the agency's direction in response to a changing environment. The strategic plan guides what we do and not only articulates the actions needed to make progress, but also how to measure success. Each year, the plan is refreshed with strategic priorities, initiatives, and action items for the year ahead. In the past, priorities have included, based on the diagram here, you can see operational excellence, which is to meet the member expectations through efficient daily operations. Member centricity involves working diligently for members to achieve the maximum benefit from their membership with improved services and less delays. We are maximizing the value of every dollar spent to accomplish agency goals through greater productivity and long-term cost reductions. Business resumption has been the pulse of our operations for the past few years, demonstrating that TRS can adjust quickly to environmental changes while being mindful of employee work-life balance and provide online features that members desperately need during a crisis. Intentional change management also ensures that the agency transitions are efficient, strengthen the business model, and align with the modernization of our pension management system. So while these priorities haven't really changed much in the past few years and can be expected to remain the same in the coming years, the action items, the specific strategic action items tied to each priority is adjusted and is tracked throughout the year by each department and is refreshed on an annual basis. So if we go to the next slide, there are strategic initiatives in the plan that touch each part of the agency. One being our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. We embarked on this journey with an assessment of perceptions and experiences, along with the completion of an initial staff demographic analysis. The results informed a review and an edit of current practices and procedures. We also created and incorporated DEI statements into all job postings, and we standardized our hiring practices. We also incorporated adherence to a code of ethics and EEO standards to the performance appraisals for all staff who have direct reports. Furthermore, we also started to partner with the city's WorkWell program to provide employees with a forum for discussions around social justice, physical and mental health. A new director of human resources was hired, and we are currently recruiting for a deputy director for diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the next slide, here we have our initiative that involves the modernization of our pension management system. This initiative is now in phase 5 of 6, and it involves an extensive actionable plan to support the TRS business model and business transformation. An old system will be removed and replaced. Data will be made available in the right system at the right time with the least business disruption. The integrity of data is maintained in parallel systems, but we identify when only one system is the source of truth, and we prevent users from using multiple systems unnecessarily. We confirm that data integrity is maintained as old systems and their related data tables are decommissioned. And we implement a process for identifying the tables and functions for decommissioning that is robust and repeatable. All throughout, we're supporting the seamless sharing of information between the new and the legacy system to support ongoing business processing. So in closing, I'll say that the TRS strategic plan is current, it's industry relevant, and it's actionable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivor.
Thank you.
Any
Ivor.
questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have questions or comments from the public members. Public, anyone here? Anyone out there on Zoom land? Would like to ask a question? I see a hand up. Get my other glasses in.
John, Sean.
Josh. Hi, Josh.
Good afternoon, folks.
Hi.
So I've been a member as a beneficiary for 16 years. And I think I've got a decent amount of money under management in the program. I don't know how much though. You know why I don't know? Because 16 years in, I still don't have online access to my account. Brought this up once at a board meeting a few years ago, was told it was on a roadmap. Didn't really believe it then. I don't believe it now. So I'm just curious why I still don't have access with thousands of dollars invested in the program, but a newbie who's got nothing under management has full access to their account.
So I think we spoke last year, Josh, and as I mentioned to you, we were in the middle of a modernization effort. And you're a beneficiary for the TDAB beneficiary. And as I mentioned to you last year, we do have, it is in our strategic plan. It's also in our modernization plan to provide online access to our TDAB members. But our TDAB membership is very small, and actually the program no longer is being offered to new beneficiaries because it was implemented because there was a time when there was no ability for a non-spousal beneficiary to be, excuse me, for you to be able to roll over your money. But that has all changed over the years. Now, non-spousal beneficiaries can roll their money into a private investment firm like Vanguard, Fidelity. And those programs are much more robust than our TDAB program. There's so because of that, you're much better off going to a Vanguard because you're able to move your money and be able to invest it as you see fit. But in TRS, when you want to move money, we do it over time. It's not readily available. So we don't think that we're the best solution for people once they're the beneficiary of a TDA account to leave their money here at TRS. So you've had been a TDAB beneficiary for years, so we continue to support that, and you're welcome to stay in that program. But as I had mentioned to you earlier, we're modernizing a system, and I have 120,000 in-service people and like 90,000 retirees that we're building a system for, and I have to build it for the large group before, and satisfy the majority of our members before we get to the smaller memberships that we have. And that's just unfortunate, but you are on the plan when we modernize to create an online accessibility for you, but that is going to be further down the road in our modernization project because we need to service the 100 or 200,000 in service and retired members, to begin with, and then work on our smaller populations after that.
Okay, so where on the roadmap is that implementation?
Where on the roadmap is your implementation? I don't have the
Right, what's the
roadmap
go
in front
live?
of
What's the
me.
proposed go live date for those changes?
I don't have that in front of me because I didn't know you were coming. If I had known, I would have looked that up. But I would say it's 2 to 3 years out.
Okay, so it'll be almost 20 years before I have basic access visibility to my account.
As I said,
Do you think that that's appropriate?
I think that, how many, oh, thanks, he's not here. We have very few TDAB people, and it's not that I don't want to give you that access, but I need to give 200,000 in service and retiree members. I have to prioritize them over development for a small group of, maybe we have 200, 300 TDAB members, beneficiaries. You
Okay,
do
so
get
the
a
answer
state-
really hasn't changed in the time since we last spoke. I'm disappointed, to be
Well, it didn't
perfectly
change
honest with
because
you.
it's only been a year, right?
Okay, I've
this is a
released an
multi-
S4 implementation since we've last spoken
We're
that
making,
supports a
we're getting
$10 billion
closer.
company. So I don't want to go back and forth about this. I'm disappointed in the lack of progress. I don't think online access is too much to ask, given how long I've been a member and how many thousands of dollars are invested in the program.
Okay,
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Josh, for your question. Are there any other members of the public out there on Zoom or here? Okay, I think we've come to the end of our public agenda. Do I hear a motion to go into the executive session?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? We're now going into executive session. Thank you.
so now we're going back into the.
Now we go back into public.
During the executive session, the board approved an investment matter, details to be made public at the appropriate time.
Great. Thank you. So it's come to that time. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? We are adjourned. We'd like to ask the trustees to remain behind for an attorney-client session. Thank you. Good day, everybody.